Only a slave quantifies its existence through productivity. I find this quote to be extremely relevant, especially in our world today, because our society and our culture has established an ideology that is pretty much hustle culture, like work, work, work. And there's a lot of pride and ego that's attached to this idea of like how hard you work, right? People love to brag about this idea of working hard. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not against, like hard work. I'm a Christian and it makes it very clear in the Bible that, working hard is honorable. And I do believe this, but there comes a point where it's too much. There's a line that gets crossed where people are basing their entire identity and self-worth based off of their productivity or what they're achieving in whatever career they're choosing, right? And because of this, their life is becoming consumed by, I just want to get better at work. I want to work really hard. And it essentially creates a paradox, because what is the point of working hard if you're only going to continue to work hard? Like, you should be working hard to like reap, to like bear fruits of your labor, right? But what's happening in our world today is people are working hard, they're making money, and then they just continue to work hard. The reason that I feel so strongly about this, so, when I was younger, I'm 22 right now. I just turned 22. But throughout like my first like 3 years of college in the summer, I was doing sales internships. So like one of them was like door to door knocking solicitor, right? One of them was like over the phone selling insurance. One of them was, a consultant for a solar panel company, right? And these were all related to sales. And you can say what you want about people that sell, but they are relentless and they're extremely hard workers, right? We were putting in like no exaggeration, 70-hour weeks, and all the people had a lot of pride attached to it. And a lot of the people that I knew were legitimately millionaires, multi-millionaires. You can make a lot of money in that industry, especially if you have like people under you. It's not a pyramid scheme, but essentially it is, right? Like when you have people under you, you take a percentage. So I would say like a lot of the people in my office, like they were like in their early to mid 20s making like over like 3 million a year. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And the one thing that all these guys I found so interesting was that they were like obsessed with the work. And I was like, if I was making 3 million a year, I was going to go on vacations with my family. I was going to like enjoy my life. I wouldn't be so obsessed with the work. And these guys were like dedicated to it. And I remember there was one time we're sitting in the garage because we all lived in the same apartment complex, with this internship. And it's like 1 a.m. and we're sitting in a circle and we're just chopping it up, talking about the future. And we started talking about, where do you see yourself in the next like 5 to 10 years? And all these guys, most of them very wealthy, were like, oh, I see myself, continuing to work hard and like in building my team and doing all this stuff. And I was just thinking in my head, I was like, bro, nobody in their right mind actually wants to be doing these jobs. They're not fun jobs. Like, let's be honest at some point here, right? Like, so no one wants to be doing these jobs. So why in 5 to 10 years would you want to continue to be doing this? Wouldn't you want to exit plan or like get into something where you don't have to like do as much labor or like put in as much effort into it? Like, that doesn't seem like such a crazy idea to me, especially when you consider, you won the cosmic lottery to be alive. The chances you're alive are 1 in 43 trillion. So you literally won the lottery. And then with this gift of a life, you're going to like just lock in on work for the sake of work because you attach your identity and your ego to it. That just, it doesn't make sense. As I said before, guys, I'm not necessarily against hard work, but I'm against making the work your identity. It's almost like a man has as many masters as he does vices. And so like work becomes a vice to these people, and then they're slaves to that work. And that's what they don't understand. Like if you go back into biblical times, right, when there were slaves and peasants, did you know that they actually worked less hours than humans today? Because, they would get off like half the year, when they wouldn't have to harvest, they wouldn't be working. And it's in it, not to say like, don't get me wrong, we live better lives than those people, but it's just this idea of just constant, relentless, mind-consuming work, and it doesn't make sense. And if you look at the way that our society is designed, right, you go into, the school system when you're a kid, and they essentially breed you to be a worker, right? If you look into it, I think it was like in 1933, Rockefeller, he created and funded the like education board. And basically what happened from there was like, there's a lot of quotes that he has where he says, I'm not in the business of building thinkers, I'm in the business of building workers. And he said like, people will be too busy working to make money. What he meant is like, if you just work for a company, we'll give you just enough money to be satisfied, but not enough money to go out on your own and actually build something for yourself. And you're going to be too busy and too time consumed to like, to where when you get home, you don't have any energy to like put into, you know, a side hustle for yourself. And it's so prevalent to me, and it's so obvious because, you know, when I would look at like my friends' parents and my parents growing up, all of them sort of did the same things. They all worked like 9 to 5s that they all hated. You know, maybe they didn't admit it, but they put on these facades and act like they love their lives. But really, they're spending more time at their job than with their family. And it just, there was something about that I didn't like, right? Like, I don't think it's that far-fetched to be like, I don't think I was put on earth to just work. Like, that just seems like a curse. It doesn't make sense in my head. You know, one time I had one of my good friends, he's a really hard worker, and shout out to him, but he got this internship at Goldman & Sachs, right? This is maybe the most desired internship that a college student can have, working in finance. And so he was like gonna work in mergers and acquisitions or whatever it is, and he gets this job. And, you know, I was like being polite. I'm like, dude, that's like awesome. I mean, it is. It's a cool feat. But then I was like, I mean, what does your days look like? And he's like, man, I'm putting in like 65-hour weeks. And he's like, pretty much what I do is I just like grind Excel sheets, and I'm just crunching numbers for them. And I just looked at him and I was like, bro, you can't pay me $1 million a year to work 65 hours a week crunching numbers on Excel. It just doesn't make sense in my head. You have a finite amount of time on earth, and you're going to spend it doing that. And it's like, the problem is because, yeah, everybody is like quantifying their worth and justifying their existence through this idea of like, I need to work hard. And it's been ingrained in us since we were children. They're completely breeding us to believe this. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why am I the only one that's like aware of this and is questioning all this stuff, right? Just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. And, you know, in my experience, I've worked really hard in my life, and it's literally never made me ever feel good. You know, I'm not saying this to brag, but like when I was like, I think I was 18 or 19, it was like my first internship, and I had made, like, I think my first month I made $30,000 in a month as a 18 or 19-year-old, which is pretty good money. And I was like the most miserable I'd ever been. I didn't even care about the fact that I got the money. I was just like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? And I was like, you know what? You just need to thug it out, right? And so I did. I thugged it out, and I kept making really good money. And I ended up like in a summer making more than my parents make, right? And I had like no pride in it. Like I didn't even care, because I was like, dude, I was just miserable the whole time. And then I didn't go for that job the next year, and everyone was like, dude, you were really successful in it. And I was like, bro, but like, what was my life? I was literally a slave. Right? That's what I'm trying to get across. The whole point I'm trying to get across in this video is everyone is just being a slave. And it's crippling, and it just doesn't make sense to me.